Alexander, co-chairman of Gwich'in Council International, and about to have a little discussion on Arctic governance. Thought I'd come out here today to talk first about where I first heard about something being governed in the Arctic, and that was when I went trapping about the age of 4 or 5 and learned about muskrat. We're out here on this beautiful lake out here in the Yukon Flats, just outside of the village of Fort Yukon, about 8 miles north of the Arctic Circle in the heart of Gwich'in country. And we got right down here a little muskrat push-up.
Some might see a land like this and think that there's no governance at all. What rules exist in an area with jumble ice and 40 below and trying to make a life out here? I know that there's often talk around the world about the Arctic as an ungoverned area, but that's not accurate. You know, in our area here, we've governed for a long time, and we've governed things even as simple as a muskrat push-up. Even finding a muskrat push-up in a vastness like this is something that follows certain rules that you have to understand. It's not just everybody who sees the push-up. It's not just everybody who sees what you need to do to manage something so small for abundance. You can travel across this land and not even notice something as small as a muskrat push-up. But managing that muskrat push-up makes all the difference in this environment. It could mean the difference of this lake that we're driving across here holding hundreds of muskrat or holding only a few, just by the way that those push-ups are managed. When my grandfather was managing lakes at an area called Shoal, he used to pull 1,000 muskrat a day out of a lake there. And now at that same lake, there's only a couple, 2, 3 push-ups left because we stopped trapping that area and managing it as intensively as we used to. Now, when we go to this little push-up where the muskrat live and eat, they stop in these little push-ups and they eat their vegetables from the bottom of a lake just like this. When we go there, we make sure we never take too much. We make sure that we're monitoring exactly how many muskrat are pulled from each push-up. And when we do that, what happens is that muskrat will breed younger, it'll breed more, they'll have a lot more muskrat in that area. And that's how we create an abundance in an area like this. That's how you can draw a lot of life into an area with our involvement, with our knowledge. You know, an area like this could be full of life if it's managed correctly. Fox, other kinds of animals can also be eating the muskrat, and so it's better for all of the animals involved if we do things correctly. And so you can see, even as we cross this lake here, it's crisscrossed with fox tracks. Some of that life is as a result of people being involved here. It's better for all the animals. That's one way of governing. It's governing for abundance, governing with your hands on the land itself and understanding the animals, understanding our relationship, our interrelatedness to all the animals. Another way of governing is to look at this landscape and say, instead of looking at this push-up right here and saying, we're going to manage it one by one, we're going to manage that those push-ups by saying you can have 20 muskrat out of an area, an arbitrary number. And we deal with those kinds of government questions, those kind of government managements from the state and the federal government of the United States and Alaska and in Canada and the Yukon Territory and so forth as Gwich'in people. But as Gwich'in, we manage things a little differently than that. And our methods are all about creating a very lively and rich, abundant landscape. And when you look at some place like this meadow here and like this push-up and this lake, it's easy to think that these things are not governed, that we're out here and things are not happening if you don't know what you're looking at. And in the Arctic, a lot of what we've done is been unseen and been unheard. And so it's important for us to be seen, to be heard, and for the policies and for the projects and the programs that are enacted on the state, regional, international levels to reflect Gwich'in priorities and to reflect Indigenous priorities of the other permanent participants. And by doing that, we bring these projects, we bring these programs of the Arctic Council to this local level where it can be meaningful. And if it's not meaningful here, then it's not meaningful anywhere. And so it's very important for us to make sure that that when we look at this landscape that reflects our priorities of abundant life, that of respect, of respecting everything, even down to a muskrat's home. And when we get done with that push-up, we always make sure that we cover it back up with snow so that it can be used again by other muskrat and can be a place of refuge for them. It's important that we are very intentional about what we do and about the way that we approach this landscape, because it's a very fragile landscape. And only by working together are we going to get there and get it done. You know, when we think about projects and Arctic governance, we make sure that people remember that even the smallest thing needs respect, that every creature out here has got to be accounted for. And when we think about projects like wildland fire, we're making sure that the consideration goes into those projects where our traditional practice was to burn these meadows and lakes on the edge in the springtime when there's still snow in the forest so that the fire wouldn't spread. But by burning those meadows and lakes and the edges, we're providing rich, the most nutritious forage for these muskrat, for the waterfowl, for all the animals that are here, and creating a very good life for them. So it's very important for us that our projects, that our governance are interrelated, that our intention here is rooted even down to the level of a muskrat push-up in what we do. It's not enough to think about governance in a sense of punishment or after the fact. It's governance is active. It's involved in the land. It's involved in our relationships. It's involved in how we do things and a protocol and the respect that we have and the respect that we treat things with. And so it's very important for us to be involved in that kind of way and have those principles reflected in our projects, like in the PPR and CAF and so forth. And it's very important that we listen to others and we're inclusive of others and that we respect other peoples around the world and try to learn from how they're doing things. And so that's very important to us as we go forward. So that's how we go from a muskrat push-up to pushing projects and the conservation of Arctic flora and fauna working group, the SDWG, the EPPR, and how potential agreements for wildland fire relate to a single muskrat push-up in the Yukon Flats. And when we focus our efforts on doing true Arctic governance like that, then we can have a more peaceful world. And the Arctic can retain what it's retained over these last millennia going forward for the next generations and not just for the Arctic, but the whole world. And that's how we engage in governance for a peaceful world, one that's more abundant for everyone and also stable. Climate change is something that we have to contend with now, and we absolutely need to govern and think about how we govern things and how we're governing things around the world in order to make a better future.